things at Waitrose, M&S, Ocado, Dalesford, a whole bevy of cocktail bars, Michelin-star restaurants. They even exhibited at the Chelsea Flower Show and won in their first year, which is just absolutely insane. Ben, I'm super pumped to have you on today, mate. I'm really, really, really excited for this.
Thanks, Dan. Great to be here.
So I was doing research, and there's kind of the whole like cornucopia of like different pathways we could kind of meander down to begin with. But I think the best place to start is nature. I was looking on your Instagram, and you said you're on your bio. It says nature flavor design, and I love your Instagram. I was looking through it, and it's so refreshing because it is just these gorgeous, soul nourishing pictures of nature. And it's probably the only account that actually makes you feel good. It's like you're not some plonkers in Dubai like popping bottles or something like that. It's actually a genuinely lovely account to look at. And it is quite a deep question to maybe start with, but I'd love to know in maybe one sentence what nature means to you.
That is a big question to start.
Well, I mean, if to help you out,
it is. I don't necessarily know the best way to express it, I guess, in words, but the word that comes to mind to me is everything. Like nature, how I feel, living surrounded by fields and forests, and greenery and space and fresh air. There is absolutely, to me, no better feeling in the world than like waking up this morning because the birds are so loud. They are singing, and God, I could talk about nature all day and how much I love it and how much it means to me and how much it provides, and I don't know, just how fucking underappreciated and underestimated it is, and being able to show my kids that is, it's mega. Like, I took my little daughter out yesterday evening to go up and see the rabbits and the chickens, and she picks a strawberry that's fresh, from the veg patch. Like, that's magic. That's so rewarding and just, I think, really nourishing and wholesome.
No, I completely agree, and I sort of like, here's your blue Peter badge, Dan, have a biscuit. But I came up with my sort of sentence, and for me, and as we were talking before we hit the record button, I've just spent a week down in Cornwall, kind of just bathing my soul in nature, and it really is kind of, for me, it's ego dissolving. Your ego dissolves when you're in nature. It's perspective altering, and what you said there about it being everything, and I realize a lot of people think, oh, nature is just it's beautiful to see nature, but there's actually a lot of pain in nature. There's a lot of, I was looking at the sort of thunderous waves, and it's chaos. And I think as human beings, we're both perfect and we're chaotic. And I think the more you spend time in nature, the more you kind of accept that. And I suppose one of the issues we've got now is, all these people look on Instagram, they just think everything is perfect, and it's not perfect. It's far from perfect. I think,
and all of nature's idiosyncrasies are what makes it. I'm as equally kind of, I guess, amazed by seeing the poppies, bloom in the garden, and the actual perfection and symmetry of the seed head, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But equally, just when there's mess and a storm, like, I know they create absolute hell, damage, death, etc., and destruction, but the power, is pretty incredible. And where we are, we're on top of a hill here, so we get serious wind up here. And we've got a lot of evergreen trees, so that noise that the wind makes going through all of the trees it just makes you feel alive.
It's so interesting. And also, it's the whole thing of good days and bad days is quite a few guests have said on the podcast, you know, you got to have a bad day to appreciate a good day. And I think you've got to have those almost kind of the barrenness of winter to appreciate the beautiful spring and the poppies and stuff. And I think nature, again, it's that appreciation of, yeah, there's going to be good days, and that obviously spills into your entrepreneurial journey or just life in general. There's good and bad days. And I think I'm kind of grateful we live in the UK, because if I was to live in California where it's just always banging weather, it'd be a kind of, no wonder it's like quite a placid culture over there. Do you know what I mean? It's quite fake.
Very funny to, you know, I was in LA, I don't know, 6-7 weeks ago, and it's weird to not check the weather, you know, before you get dressed.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird to have an event in, what will it have been, beginning of March, uncovered, outside, and no one to have a backup plan if it rains. You know, like, it's just sort of weird when it's always nice. And you know, I couldn't live anywhere else, because the English countryside and the seasons are the best thing about this country and this kind of ecosystem here. Yeah, otherwise it's too samey. You know, you've got to have that distinction of produce and that distinction of temperature and what clothes you need to wear and what you do in the seasons. Yeah, I couldn't live without that.
And what would you say is your favourite season that like elicits the most either creative juice? Because I think you get a lot of creativity from nature as well. What would you say is your favourite season?
If I had to choose, I mean, I love spring and autumn, and I prefer over summer and winter, just because there's so much change happening. You know, there's so much. It's like in the spring, everything's waking up, and from a fauna perspective, like, you know, there's baby lambs and there's animals, and everybody's coming out of hibernation, and there's just this kind of rebirth, new beginning type feel to the chapter, and it's light for a bit longer. You know, you start to see leaves and flower. Just there's a rejuvenation aspect, and I find that really, uplifting. And then, you know, autumn, from a visual perspective, just from a color, and this kind of just winding down side of things, of sort of, okay, the summer's finished, and then we're going to have one last hurrah with all these reds and golds and yellows and oranges. You know, and I'm specifically thinking obviously about the trees. Yeah, and then it's sort of bedtime, and you grow things underground, and you know, yeah, they're both really cool. But I think spring is particularly special.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with that. And I think for me, one of the things you can't beat is when it's probably just on that crisp of autumn going into winter, when the sun is out and it's blisteringly cold, and you go on a walk. Like, that to me is just, it's like magnetic. And now where I want to kind of dig deeper into the weeds of, I suppose, very nature themed this, but is your nature and almost planting the seed of you as a kid, right? I'd love to explore your childhood. And you know, I read an article, and it's, you know, Ben's mother has been, you know, farming in England for like 9 generations, over 300 years, and your old man was in branding and design. And you know, this article said he truly is the product of both his parents, and poured a part of each of them into the bottle, which I thought was brilliant. What one or two vital lessons did your mum and dad install in you growing up that you think has set you up for success at SEEDLIP?
I think there's probably 2 key ones that I took from both of them, really. The first one was just a bloody good work ethic, and you know, whether that's the farm and that being bloody hard work, right? And, people always forget that farmers are business owners and entrepreneurs, right? It's kind of, people always forget that. And everybody in my family works themselves. So I was surrounded by, my dad setting up his own business, and obviously with the farm as well, that running as its own business as well. So hard work for my dad setting up a business, hard work for the farm, that was definitely instilled in me of, work hard, work really hard. And then the second one that sort of connected to that, I guess, was sort of independence and responsibility. And, I went away to school very young. And, I was ironing my own trousers at, 7 years old. And I was polishing my shoes at 7 years old and taking myself to bed and, being able to cook at an early age and being able to, I'm 39 now, so I'm 40 next year. But, when I grew up, there wasn't what there is now to occupy children's attention. There aren't phones and screens. There weren't phones and screens, etc. So being kicked out of the house, in school holidays, and go and make your own fun. Like go and figure it out. You go and kind of busy yourself. Was so, I think, so formative of creativity, initiative, risk taking. Right, well, I'm going to go and build a tree house, and I might fall off, but I'm going to go and build a tree house, and that means I need planks and a hammer and nails, and I'm going to do it. Or, I've got two younger brothers, so there was sort of the three of us of, okay, I'm going to make a bow and arrow, I'm going to figure that out. So yeah, that has carried through to, I guess, where work's concerned. I don't know, but I'm going to find out, and taking sort of wanting to learn, I wanted to learn when setting up SEEDLIP, which, took 2 years. I wanted to learn every single aspect of the business. So I wanted to know what a value chain was, what a P&L is, how a balance sheet works, how to actually do one, not let me watch a YouTube video and understand what a balance sheet is. How can I make my own balance sheet for my own business? And I'm not, I'm no maths whiz at all, but I just wanted to learn and get to the bottom of the barrel almost on every single aspect of what setting up and running a business entailed. And I do that on distilling ingredients. I want to distill everything. I want to try and experiment with everything. So yeah, that kind of learning, curiosity, lack of, or sort of that freedom to be able to just go and explore and get into trouble and make mistakes and be in and out of A&E. And, my grandfather said to my mother when I was 4 years old, "You'll never raise that boy," about me, because I was, I very like my youngest daughter now, who's an absolute head case. She's crazy, but in a way that I really encourage. She's absolutely fearless. So yeah, big imprint on those two lessons, I guess, from work ethic and then sort of independence and responsibility.
Yeah, it's so interesting. 'Cause what you said there about go and make your own fun, like I really like that. I think I was down, as I said, down in Cornwall, and there was some kid at the bar. He must have been like 2 years old, and the mum was just force feeding this kid an iPad. And I was sat there like thinking, what the fuck is that kid going to end up like? We're losing this ability we're squelching our curiosity with these bloody iPads. And I think what you said there about if I don't know, I will know. And it's everything it's kind of at the nexus you've done is, I read you just said yes to Chelsea Flower Show, and you just said yes to that. Fuck, I don't know what I'm doing, and we'll explore that in a bit. I definitely want to explore that. But I love this idea of just figure it out. And I think for listeners, it's a salient piece of wisdom, because I think they get so and myself included, you get so lost in thinking, I need to know everything, I need to figure everything out. And I think this comes from school and preparing for exams. We need to know everything before we go into a situation. I think what's really refreshing from you, Ben, is that it's actually, no, just jump, take the leap. My whole thing is ready, fire, aim. Just like start, go, and you'll figure it out.
Enough. It's enough. Like that's, yeah, it's not, it's sort of trying to get the intuitive understanding, which you can only really do through experience and learning of what's enough to know, right? What's enough to know to make a decision or buy something or say yes to something. And sometimes that's, as you just said, say yes and fuck it, we'll figure it out later. And sometimes it's okay, I don't know what to do about that, so I'm going to go and get a really quick insight and understanding that maybe backs up a hunch or disproves a theory, and then be like, okay, it's enough. I don't need to boil the ocean on this. I don't need to kind of figure it all out. Chelsea Flower Show was an amazing opportunity that just intuitively felt like, fuck, well, we're a nature company and we want to engage with an audience that also have a care and appreciation for the natural world and for plants. Like, well, that sounds pretty good, that we might go and find those kind of people at a flower show, that's attended by tens of thousands of people and constant BBC coverage and all the rest of it. Like, that's got to be worth a look-see. So yeah, I think we don't need this whole sort of perfection, or it's got to be, all the theory's got to be done to then get into the practice. It's like, no, there's got to be momentum and action, and that means a few mistakes, and that means getting it wrong a few times. But it's just I hate not feeling progress. I hate not feeling like things are moving, and if they're static or they're caught up in process or just theory and intellect, I just want to take action.
Mate, there's so much to talk about on that in a bit, but I think what you said there, it's kind of marrying it up to the nature bit at the beginning. Is not feeling progress, and the only thing with nature is it's a constant movement. It's so interesting exploring your passion for nature and how this spills into business. What I want to talk about now, I suppose, is either the kind of the cousin or the sibling to nature is nurture, right? And I think everyone listening to this, like myself included, we're all going to have a certain set of cards we're dealt with or skills that we're good at, but also going to have some things that we're not so good at and have to graft and work on. So you said the nature of Ben, kind of the curiosity, the taking action, the figuring it out. I'd love to know from a leadership perspective on your journey, what were some weaknesses you had to kind of nurture and work on to flourish as a founder? Because I think that's something I haven't talked about with guests yet, and I'd love to explore that.
Yeah, I think sport prepared me for leadership or helped me learn about leadership. There's so many links between, team games, right, and leading a team of people in a project or a business context. And I loved my sport at school, and I was pretty good at it, and that meant I was in captain kind of positions and leading teams and speaking up and hopefully inspiring people and getting people together and picking people back up. I felt like I'd got well practiced at that from school. The bit that, and so taking that experience into then building a team and leading a team, I feel I didn't have the experience of building a team, right? I didn't have the experience of hiring a team and knowing who's a good hire, who's not a good hire, when do you hire, where do you find these people, how do you then support and develop them, when they join. So I had all of the kind of, oh yeah, I think I can lead some people. Yeah, I can do that. But the building bit, I didn't know. And so I kind of resorted to, well, I'm going to hire what I'm not good at. And and I had a really clear picture of the kind of culture and kind of people from an attitude and a work ethic and a values perspective. And I had a bit of a sense of, okay, you need some salespeople, some marketing people, some people in supply, and some people in finance, right? I obviously had a bit of a sense of the kind of departments in a team. And so I had to really get over to, or learn and develop or nurture two things. One, who do you hire when? And that, I think I got, I got wrong at the beginning, because my first hire, according to my plan, was going to be a part-time intern. And that was based on me selling 1,000 bottles in 6 months, and those 1,000 bottles sold in 3 weeks. And it was just like, right, well, a part-time intern is probably not going to help really deliver on this opportunity. And then the second one was probably very simply not listening to my head and getting over the fact that, I'm SEEDLIP'S worst critic. And no one's ever going to say anything or write anything about SEEDLIP that I haven't thought, and that's incredibly empowering, ironically, to know that you've already thought it, and whatever anybody says cannot hurt you. But also, I think there's something in there about the actions that I took leading a team were not actions of someone that worried that this was a really shit idea, or that this was going to crumble, or this was going to fail, or that people didn't like it, or that there wasn't an opportunity. My actions to my team were and are ones of belief and clarity, with a, I think, very appropriate level of skepticism and caution, that makes sure that there's the rigor of, we can do anything, but that doesn't mean we should. And why are we doing this? Why do we want to do this new project? Why do we want to do this partnership? Why do we want to do a new product? And that's something that, when you've got a young, exciting, dynamic, fast-moving, fast-paced business, is hard to keep the reins on. But yeah, I think we strike the balance right.
Yeah, there's so much in that, mate. So first kind of question is, what sports were you playing as a kid growing up? What was the kind of the sports you were playing?
I mean, rugby, hockey, and cricket were the three key ones. I played county cricket and county hockey, and I was in sort of school top teams at very early ages, and then everything, tennis, skateboarding, rollerblading, swimming, climbing. Yeah, just
everything.
Outdoors.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it goes back to this point of just, as you said, go make your own fun. I love that so much. It's such a great saying. And look, I haven't actually talked about this on the podcast before, but it's something that needs to be talked about. And I've seen so many examples of people, basically, I think all brands at some point feel they need to hire someone super corporate to come in and change the ship. And I've got a mate called Duff who works at Lucky Saint, and he said you were doing a talk there, which was unreal. And he said one of your biggest mistakes was hiring someone with, I think you did it 3 times. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, 3 times. You'd hired someone with almost like a glittering and illustrious corporate career, But they come into a startup and it was a bit of a car crash, apparently. Like, in my opinion, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I know there's so many examples of this happening, and I don't know why challenger brands feel they've got to do this. But it's almost back to the sport thing. It's like trying to get a cricket coach to coach a rugby team. It's not saying that cricket guy is not good. He may have smashed 100 runs, whatever. He's got a banging career. But it's a completely different sport. And I think big corporates versus challenger brands, they are a completely different way of thinking. I would love to know, one, what advice would you give to listeners who may be thinking we need to hire someone more corporate, is the first question. And then to sort of bolster onto that is, and this is the hardest thing, is how do you keep the founder's magic alive as you scale and you need more structure?
Yeah, really, really good questions, and they're both nice problems to have, right? Because they're both usually symptomatic of growth and growing pains, and the nice kind of dilemma of, this is going quite well. There might be something in this. Ooh, it's a bit more serious now. Ooh, there's a bit more jargon flying around. Ooh, these funny supermarkets have got acronyms and loads of paperwork, and it's all a bit, they're asking quite serious grown-up questions that are very specific to the industry. Or finance is getting, it's getting a little bit more complex, just a bit more specific. And now we want to kind of put some plans in place to really grow and accelerate the business. Hiring people who are just kind of smart and hungry and great people, they don't know how to do that. They're not from the industry. So maybe we need a couple of them. That's what went through my head. That's what I'm sure, for anybody out there in that position, that's kind of what you're going through. And first thing to say is not all corporate people are rubbish in startups, right? That's first thing to say, because, I think of one specific example, guy called Nick, who we hired, straight from LVMH. He'd only had a corporate career. So, big corporate background, very well educated, very articulate, brilliant. And we were really worried about him for the first 6 months. And, it was a real culture shock coming into the Seedlip business. But then he absolutely thrived, and he went from kind of, managing some international export business to running our GB business, then running the European business. And then he went on to run the US business. And sadly, he died about 8 weeks ago. But he was an amazing example of someone who had only known corporate life, but had the right attitude and work ethic of being tenacious and resilient and working hard and getting it done and taking action and having clarity and conviction in what he was doing, that kind of, was able to transition across. And there are more examples like Nick out there. But it's really, it's difficult. Nick was, same age as me. He wasn't in his 50s, he wasn't 30 years in a corporate career. And so the only thing I'd say is it's just finding the right level of seniority and experience and corporate experience. And my view, as soon as you tip over, 40 odd years plus, I think it becomes very, very difficult for people to make switches and really bash through the culture shock of how different it is working for a startup versus working for a big corporate.
Yeah, as you say,
it's the second point of your question, because I can't remember.
No. It does. What the second point was, like, keeping the founder's magic, and I think what you've said there, and you said it's these growing pains, and it's a good problem to have, and I think It's such a hard balance. It's such a hard balance because you do need a bit of that. And I suppose for listeners, what were the specific listeners may need to find a Nick, right? To have cataclysmic growth. What would they specifically be looking for, do you think? What was it that Nick had in him versus other people you interviewed? Because I think that could really benefit listeners.
I think, you know, it's everything. It's all of the little things, actually. It's how fast do they respond on email? How, you know, when you suggest a time and date to meet, are they like, yeah, and they then go move meetings around and do stuff in the background rather than the, oh, yeah, I need to get back to you, or, oh, can you do a bit later? Or, you know, it's sort of like, if somebody wants the opportunity, then it's my belief that the process of getting to an interview is really smooth. It's really seamless. It's quick. It feels like it just happens, that it's right time, right place. As soon as you get into like, oh, I can't do that call now, or, oh, sorry, something else has come up, or, oh, can you meet a bit later, or, oh, sorry, I'm late, you know, all of those little bumps, they start to be flags for me. And I'm very gut-led, very kind of intuition-led in my decision-making. So I go on how it's feeling, you know, because you can find 100 CVs of, you know, great sales kind of capability. You can, there are thousands of people out there who are amazing salespeople and have got amazing CVs. So you have to find other ways to judge and kind of decipher whether this person's going to be good. You know, easy thing. We gave people a task to do, and we deliberately gave them a very short amount of time to come back with it. And that's like a really easy, simple thing that pressure tests somebody, A, under pressure, B, working fast, smart, and then see what they're like under pressure to deliver some work. And if there's anything like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do it in that time, you're not wasting lots of time going, nah, this person's probably not quite right. We had 7 questions that we would send out to people as a filter, and they were all absolutely loaded with psychology and underlying meaning, and they were really simple questions, things like, if you were a plant, what would you be and why? And the old classic of the dinner party guests, and describe yourself in 140 characters. And I spent a long time working on them to kind of go, when we hire people and it doesn't work out, why not? And when we hire people and it works out, why does it work out? What have we learned here? And so what do we need to test against to make sure that we find the people that it's working out really well, and we get rid of the people that it's not working so well with, and strip them out of the interview process. And so the 7 questions were all aimed at, do people know who they are? Do they have good self-awareness and a good sense of self? Because in a startup environment, I think that is one of the most important things and skills for people to have when they're faced with pressure, fatigue, you know, the unknown, uncomfortable, growing pains, etc. Like, it's a high stress environment. And so then really understanding themselves means they can, I think, have a better aptitude at respecting and empathizing with their colleagues, who are also going to be in this fast-paced, frenetic environment where, you know, if you're not careful, it can get shouty and stressful and bickering and doesn't gel as a team. So there was that, and can they very articulately and concisely communicate that? So do they know who they are, and can they tell you who they are? And it sounds so, hiring a finance person, why would that be relevant? But it's this cultural glue that we found that bound people together in the sense of, I know who I am, and I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at, and I know what my role is, and I can communicate that and what I think and how I feel with my teammates. That's why, there are SEEDLIP people who go on holiday together. That's why there are SEEDLIP people who live together. And it's not a friend, it's not about, I say it's like, we're not here to, it's not about making friends, right? It's not a kind of family friend business. But those were the outputs of having such a strong group of people, united by a shared belief and love for the natural world, number one, and united by, I think, a great sense of self-awareness and empathy for others.
Mate, that's unreal. There's so much I want to kind of dig into on that, mate. Because I think it's like as I said, we're going through growing pains at Nanny Life. It's kind of asking selfishly here. But what were the 7 questions? Like, we don't have to go into them quickly, but just if we could rattle them off, I think that would be really impactful for listeners.
We did a yearbook that has got them in. Here we go. So, describe yourself in 140 characters. Can they simplify and get to the really key bits? How self-aware are they? Mm-hmm. Your career in 5 sentences. Can they make it punchy? Can they sell themselves? Are they aware of what makes them a good hire? Your next 3 years in 5 sentences. Do they know what they want? Have a level of ambition beyond just taking a job? So 5 sentences was really important at SEEDLIP because it was, we didn't do any internal email at SEEDLIP. So everything was done on Slack. There was no SEEDLIP WhatsApp group. It was all done on Slack. Email was for customers and consumers and suppliers. Slack was for team and work and projects, and WhatsApp was for your personal life. So 5 sentences was a guideline based on me looking into the psychology of emails, that was the optimum amount of text in an email that meant it would get an answer and a reply. Number 4 was, if you were a plant, what plant would you be and why? This was testing their nature connection and how well do they know themselves. If you were an animal, what animal would you be and why? Again, testing that nature connection and how well do they know themselves. If someone's like, I'll be a daisy and a pig, you're kind of like, okay, we're not looking for the rarest species, but we got some amazing answers. Number 6, the most important book you've ever read. Are they curious? Do they read? Can they make a decision? It's really hard, I notice, and I'm guilty of this as well, when someone says, what is your favorite or what is the most important, to only give one. Mm-hmm. You see with the seasons, you ask me which is my favorite season, I'm like, no, I like spring and autumn. Okay, fuck it, I'll choose spring. Choose one book. And then number 7, you're hosting a dinner party. You have 6 guests to invite. They can be dead, alive, fictional. Who would you invite? And this was just like, who they choose can say so much, family, about values, about what they're interested in, hosting, etc., how well these people might get on. And they were great. We never changed them.
I absolutely love that, and that will be so cataclysmic for listeners who are trying to navigate the tumultuous waters of growth. Like, it's so there's so much in that, and there's obviously so much work that's gone into it to elicit these responses and make sure they're tied into the nature bit. And obviously you've got the values like it's I think it's at pace, politely, properly. Like, and we'll definitely explore that in a sec. But I'm going to have to ask this question to you, mate. Like, what is your one most important book? 'Cause I read that you collect Penguin books. Like, sorry, you teed me up there. I was like, I'm going to have to do a bit of a backhand here, but
this is a slight cop out, but I'll get you my most favourite book, or the most important book.
Most important.
Apart from obviously the Seedlip cocktail book available from all good booksellers.
That's jokes.
This is the most important book. This book changed my life. This book is the reason that I have children. This book is the reason that I re-met and rekindled my relationship with my now wife, who I hadn't seen for 18 years. This book is the reason that Seedlip exists. So this book, The Art of Distillation, originally published in 1651. This copy that I'm showing you now is a 1664 copy. This is the most important book. This is the book that gave birth to the non-alcoholic spirits category.
And where were you when you first read that book?
I first found it online. So if you Google The Art of Distillation PDF, you will find what I found. Someone had scanned it in, and I was looking for different ingredients to grow at home. So that was my first encounter with it. And then as sort of Seedlip started to form, I went, first step was to go to the British Library and see King George III's original copy. And then I emailed a load of antique booksellers, and thankfully a few months later, somebody came back with the fact that they'd found this 1664 edition. So yeah, most expensive book I've ever bought, most important book I've ever read. Not my favourite, but my most important.
Yeah, that's epic. I've got mine here, like The War of Art. I don't know if you've read this.
No, I haven't.
It's an unbelievable book. It's like, but you basically, it's your way to bludgeon through procrastination and like not doing the work. You read that, and I literally have it there. I was like, you got fucking work. Like, do the work. Like, that book's like, I don't know. It's like stares at me. It's reassuring, but quite scary as well at the same time. Mate, that was brilliant. And I think where I want to jump to now is the actual strategy of getting such a nascent idea and concept off the ground in the first place. So, I think was it 2014 you guys started?
November the 4th, 2015 is when we launched.
2015. So, I mean, that feels like yonks ago. And it's only now that the category is really getting some oomph behind it. There's lots of listeners, even it could be a kombucha brand. You've got these new kind of avant-garde brands and products that need a bit of time and education. I would love to jump in to your actual strategy. Like, I read somewhere or listened on a podcast, I think, you said you had the Halo accounts, the posh garden centres and the supermarkets. What was, I suppose the first question is, what was the initial strategy? Mm-hmm. First question. Second question, or kind of intertwined with that, is how did you educate people on Seedlip? Because I remember I went up to do a sampling at Booze, and the guy was like, "What, fucking peanut butter and apple, mate? I'm not having that." Like, I was just like, "Oh, sorry, mate." Like, I was like some posh Londoner, like, "Oh, hello, mate. Would you like some peanut butter and apple?" Do you know what I mean? So there's a massive educational piece in all of this, especially up and down the country. Yes. So yeah, first question is those three tiers, the 3-tier strategy, and how you educate people.
Yeah, so the strategy was very simple, based on the challenge and the opportunity. So the challenge was created a weird new thing that people don't know about and have never heard of and are going to have lots of questions. So how do we make it seem A, brilliant, B, how can we find a way to give people a great first experience that helps them understand it, right? And there's nothing better than tasting something. You know, it's all very well, well, personally, it's all very well watching YouTube how-to videos on stuff, or watching people, you know, remotely tasting things and telling you about the tasting notes. But there's nothing quite like actually drinking a drink or doing something with your hands. So what we needed to begin with was real credibility, that this is a thing and it exists, and non-alcoholic spirits are here. Like they're something to be taken seriously. To do that meant starting at the top, and that meant finding the best bars, restaurants, the best retailers, to really be amazing by association. So no one knows who I am. You know, I'm not from the drinks industry. So there's zero credibility in Seedlip and a really high price point, right? And it's a weird thing. So really easy to throw stones at, really easy to discount, and really easy to be skeptical of. When, you know, it's in Selfridges and the Fat Duck and, you know, top cocktail bartenders are talking about it, it's then quite difficult to say you're wrong. Heston Blumenthal or Tom Kerridge or Ryan Chetty or Selfridges, nah, you're wrong. I think it's shit. So that informed the we're a premium product and we're a weird new thing and we need credibility. So let's start at the top. And then the second piece, how did that then come alive? And how did we educate people? Yes, lots of time in the trade, right? Yes, lots of time talking to bar teams and training bartenders and, you know, getting geeky on distillation and sterile filtration and the ingredients, and, you know, being able to kind of like geek out with bartenders on the real, like, I would say functional education piece of this is how we make it and this is what goes in it and here's the specifics on recipes and let me show you a drink. So that was you know, that was okay. That was just bar to bar, right? That was sort of the trick then really with consumers was connected to that. How can we give them, as I was saying, a great first experience and a least risk experience of it going wrong? So if you are in a beautiful bar or a beautiful restaurant, and I can tell you that everybody that I meet that has tried Seedlip remembers the first time that they tried it. And pretty much without exception, that is always in a bar, in a restaurant, in a hotel, i.e. they did not make the drink. Somebody made it for them. And, you know, having an amazing drink, you know, at the Hand and Flowers, for example, means you remember it and you kind of get a sense of that was really brilliant. So I'm going to go and look into where I can get it from. So the on-trade is brilliant for trial. Obviously, events, sampling, partnerships where there's dinner or drinks involved were really, really helpful, so that we could sort of combine this, listen to a bartender telling you about Seedlip, and if we've done our job correctly, we've educated the bartender. So the bartender can then be that point of education to the consumer, and tell them about the drink and go and get the bottle and show the bottle to them and maybe talk about a couple of the ingredients. That, you know, having an army of sort of bartenders, really, really important. You know, and when we launched, Instagram was just getting going. You know, there wasn't as much sort of what I'd call like digital media to educate people with. You know, we had a really simple website. We didn't even sell from the website. I was really against selling Seedlip off our website for about the first 2 years. but we could at least provide some recipes and some information and some good FAQs on the website. But the number one way we found to educate people is face to face. You cannot beat real life. There is, giving you a postcard or showing you a video when you're, I don't know, just on your lunch, when you're not with a drink and you're not making a cocktail, and telling you how to make something or how Seedlip's made, I think it just goes in one ear and out the other. It's at the point of kind of consumption that the best education, in my view, lands, because you're drinking the drink.
I've got a very firm belief on this as well, because I think there's this thing called do things that don't scale, and it's basically what you're saying. It's I think a lot of listeners want to go and spend a load of dough on Facebook ads, and you may hit 10,000 people, whatever. But actually, there's a massive, huge difference between meek fans and diehard fans. And I think if that person is seeing a Seedlip ad on Facebook on their lunch break when they're eating a bloody meal deal, right, versus being in a cocktail bar, the bartender being passionate and oozing it, that experience is so memorable that they'll tell 10 of their friends. And I think for listeners, and this is a mistake I made, I used to think, it's all about just we need awareness, loads of awareness. But if that first interaction is pretty tepid, then you're not going to get diehard fans. And I think that's really reassuring for listeners. And I look back now on how we did it, but I don't know if you know Panzer's in St. John's Wood. It's a gorgeous store, really lovely store. But I would sample there every weekend for the first. And then what happened is all the staff started selling our peanut butter because they loved it. And suddenly you've got a bit of a free sales team because all of them, like your bartenders, and I think a lot of people want to take they don't want to take, but when you've got all these sort of, as you say, like Instagram, you can just explode on TikTok. Yes, you can, but never get away from the fact that we're in food and drink, and the proof of the pudding's in the eating. And if you can deliver that in a memorable way, you'll create diehard fans. So I absolutely, completely agree. And I also think as well what you said about the Halo accounts and Selfridges is people think. I remember someone said to me once, "Oh, mate, the volume won't be great in Selfridges." I was like, "That's not the point, you div. It's the whole point is that it's an account that has the recognition and you partnering with that." So I think again, it's a lot of listeners potentially may want to just rush straight into a supermarket, and I think that's one. There's no fun in that, and two, you're just going to get kicked out like a revolving door.
Yeah, and look, supermarkets are not stupid, right? Why would I take something that has got zero track record and probably got pretty tiny budgets? What is the point? Why bother? It's way more hassle than it's worth. And so the kind of learning that and by the way, I didn't learn this immediately. We learned the hard way. But effectively, if you have a new product that needs education, the absolute number one focus must be trial, because trial is education in the context of a new product that no one's ever heard of that needs explaining. The best way, as painful as it is, because events and sampling is pain. It is startup pain, right? Doing events and packing down and standing on your feet and all that, it's painful.
But I also think
so crucial.
I also think on that as well. It's trial, but also making sure that the interaction's perfect. So I think I've seen so many examples of people just hiring students who'd rather be on a ciggy break, and they're just that first interaction, mate, you can't talk about our brand like that. What are you doing? And I think even the other day, Taste London last year, Ollie and I, my colleague, did a 16-hour shift, but we were just boshing it out. I love it. I love talking about the brand. I'm so passionate about it. But I think for listeners, I really wouldn't, especially if you're a solo founder, get some agency in, because they're just not as passionate about you. And it goes back to that whole diehard versus meek fans. You want to get the passion about it. Where I want to jump to next, mate, and I know I've read quite a few things actually. One is that you work with those of amazing restaurants. You're obviously an ardent foodie. I think is your wife a chef? Am I right in saying, or she was a chef?
No, she wasn't. She's in fashion.
Oh, she's in fashion. Don't know
Yeah.
where I read that. But anyway, so you've talked at length about loving your food, working with great chefs, Hess and Blumenthal just then. And I've got this kind of thing that I believe that the greatest brands think like restaurants, really. So you've got there's an Anthony Bourdain interview with Marco Piaway, and he said people think a restaurant is food, then service, then setting, and actually it's service, setting, food. And I really believe that. And so you've got through a brand lens, you've got your food, which is the product. The setting is your tone of voice, the packaging, values, comms, etc. And then the service is like how you treat the customers. I then read that there was a brilliant article, and you said they're asking about all these bars that really influenced you, and you said, I'm going to butcher the names here, apologies. Leonis in London, I think The Old Man in Hong Kong, Nomad in New York, Paradiso in Barcelona. I would love to know what kind of learnings from those bars you specifically let filter into Seedlip. And that could be on a consumer angle, it could be leading the team. I just think it's an interesting topic to explore.
Yeah, and definitely to your point there, one thing that all of my favourite bars and restaurants share, I think, is the absolute most fantastic kind of level of hospitality and service for the guest and the guest's experience, delivered with just the magic of putting ingredients together in interesting ways, and the kind of passion, craft, and commitment with which these guys apply to whether it's their plates of food or their glasses. It's really, I've been lucky to travel to all these amazing cities around the world and see them through the eyes of the best bars, restaurants, and hotels, which is an incredible privilege, because in my view, food and drink is so integral to the kind of identity of a city and to a society. So yeah, going and experiencing a city through its food and drink culture in these best places is incredibly inspiring, and meant for lots of recipe writing on planes and lots of just kind of that feeling of being in the Old Man in Hong Kong, which is it's a tiny bar, but it's not a normal bar. It's disrupted what a bar is. There isn't like walk up to a bar. You go and sit around the bar, and I love disruption. So I like it when someone goes, why has it always been done like that? Why does it have to be done like that? And therefore I'm really embracing of, robots instead of chefs, or robots instead of bartenders, and robots instead of like delivery vans, and all that sort of slightly uncomfortable sci-fi, holy shit, are the robots going to take over, AI, all this sort of stuff. I've learned to be like, fucking bring it on. This is great. There's a bar in East London that only serves cans and doesn't have a bartender. How incredible that such an informal vessel like a can deliver a amazing cocktail and drinking experience, where it's not about making fancy drinks, it's about having delicious drinks and socializing and having a great experience, and you can go and pick it yourself out the like I fully applaud all that kind of stuff, and all of these guys, whether it's Lioness or the Old Man or Gia at Paradiso, like they all find those areas where they're like, it doesn't have to be how it's been. We can do it better and different and more unique or more exciting. So yeah, hugely inspirational going to all these places, and helpful, right? Of getting an understanding of what's going on globally, getting an understanding of what trends are happening, what are exciting things or ideas that could be brought back into the Seedlip business. And obviously amazing to work with these people, you know.
Yeah, completely. And I went down to Paul Ainsworth's restaurant. This was a couple of weeks ago, no, about 2 months ago, down in Cornwall.
Yeah.
And I wrote a thing about it. I was like, this is the best sales course I've ever been on in my life. Like, the waiter had remembered what we were talking about. I don't know, it's like the weather, not the weather, that sounds, it was definitely something more in depth than the weather. Yeah. The most British thing you could say in that situation, the fucking weather. But, he remembered the next day I got an email and he'd sent, like, saying, hope you had all this stuff on the email in terms of, almost under promising, over delivering. Like, I wasn't expecting I got all these treats. Like, that's something we want to do with our customers. So we sent our buyers Gusto recipe boxes, just sent them dinner. I learned more from that than a $4,000 training program in a fucking De Vere hotel. Do you know what I mean? Like, I really think going out of the challenger brand spheres is where you really get the juice of learnings. When you said there about disruption, what kind of things have you let, like, are there any examples to add some colour to that of like what you've done at Seedlip that could be with either buyers or consumers, or of how you've done things differently, or ask the question, why does it have to be done this way?
Yeah, I mean, I think, having a non-alcoholic product means that already opens some doors, right? So in the US, you can't sell booze on Amazon, for example, in the US easily. You can't, they've got this crazy system. You can't do D2C easily in the US, but we can with Seedlip, right? So there are some just, I don't know, smart opportunities that you kind of go, well, the nature of our product, we're just going to take. And that in the drinks industry is disruptive, right? Because it's a very different route to market. That means from our one website, there's 323 million, population and 50 states that, not obviously all those people, but lots of people in any state, if they hear about Seedlip, they can buy a bottle from our website. That's pretty disruptive, I think. So there are some bits like that of, I don't know, you can't advertise alcohol in France, right? There's some like alcohol down restrictions and regulations. Obviously you can't really talk to pregnant women, about alcohol, but they're an amazing, at minimum 9 month audience where they're not drinking alcohol. So there's disruption within the drinks industry context that people just outside the drinks industry wouldn't know about or think about. But actually within the drinks industry, going and doing a garden at Chelsea Flower Show and selling Seedlip at posh garden centres, within the drinks industry, that was really different. That was really disruptive, and just a unique way of activating the brand and finding the right audience. One of the things that I specifically took from, I did some crazy trips of just packing cities in of 2 weeks of literally like Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, Melbourne, Sydney, Auckland, LA, San Francisco, New York, Toronto, and then back to the UK, and just packing it all into 2 weeks. And based on one of those trips, we put together what seemed like, now looking back, really ambitious and a bit silly. But the question that I was asking the team was, could we find 20 of the world's best bars in 20 of the world's best cities and do a activation, a 2-night Seedlip takeover on the same 2 nights? You know, and we're going from like Toronto to Auckland and, you know, Hong Kong to LA and Barcelona and Berlin, you know, and we did it. And the guy who made it happen, you know, Stuart, he was like, you know, what was he? I don't know, 24, 25. And, you know, used to be a bartender. And I just handed him this project and just said, look, Stu, this is what I'm thinking. We're going to do it no and low alcohol cocktail 2-night activation with 20 of the world's best bars on the same 2 nights. And it's got to be bespoke menus, and, you know, and he pulled it out of the bag, and, you know, he did that in 3 months. And that was as a result of going, oh my God, there's this global bartending community and this global bar and restaurant world where there are so many similarities in terms of the dedication and the level of just absolute best-in-class hospitality. And there's so much like-mindedness globally of these similar kind of people, you know, that work in a similar kind of way. How cool if we could join that up, because it's, I think it's how we think as a brand. How can we join that up?
No, I love that. And it's, I think for anyone listening, and what I love about you, mate, is you've got this ability just to almost look somewhere completely different from where everyone else is looking, find and bring back loads of ideas, and then by doing that, that's how you've had this kind of huge growth, is because you're not looking where everyone else is looking, if that makes sense. And maybe it goes back to, I don't know, maybe going right back to the childhood of where you were just having to go and make your own fun and explore, and not, you know, go on an iPad or something like that. It's that whole thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is original, right? Everything is a combination of everything else, and combination of lots of different, nothing, I do genuinely believe nothing is original. So then how do you get good ideas? Well, you have to expose yourself to lots of different and interesting, diverse and chaotic things, right? And it's only putting, you know, dots together and joining things together that kind of make them make sense and can make interesting combinations of things that can happen. So the more interesting and diverse things that I'm interested in spark, I think, more interesting ideas.
For sure. And this is just sort of sidestepping into my curiosity here, but I read somewhere that you collect axes. Is that right?
I collect a few different things. 1940s penguin books, axes, taxidermy. What else have I got collections of? National Geographic, chairs. I have a lot of random chairs around my house that just really fucking great chairs. I am. My mother's like antique obsessed, and her house is a bit like an antique shop. So I'm. It's weird. I don't like stuff, but I do like collecting things. Cocktail glasses. That's the other one.
Yeah, I know. I think it's just so good for listeners to almost, you know, after they finish listening to this, is just go and get your ideas where no one else is looking, and then I think that's so brilliant what you guys have done. I want to talk about the Chelsea Flower Show, because I think, you know, you just kind of just said yes. You weren't qualified. you weren't in the drinks industry. Lots of listeners, even myself, like, often have imposter syndrome, like, oh, I don't deserve to be here, and it's a whole bubbling, nefarious just thoughts in your head, which is just it's just not pleasant. How did you have the confidence just to say yes? First question, and second question. From that specific event, the Chelsea Flower Show, what spilled out into Seedlip?
Yeah, good question. So, you know, the conviction to say yes was based on, well, what have we got to lose? You know, no one's asking me for any money right now. I don't have to do anything right now. So why not go and explore it? Like, you know, it's one of those decisions where you can say no later. You can change your mind. You can stop. So why not? Like, what's the worst that could happen? We go and explore it and go, nah, not for us. So that was, you know, a sort of, I guess, a bit of a most prestigious flower show in the world, right audience, you know, visual in Chelsea, near some of our accounts, you know, that all stacks up. And also, no one had really in drinks done it. So the kind of competitive side of thinking I maybe had found an opportunity or discovered something, you know, a bit like, you know, we sponsor the Wildlife Photographer of the Year exhibition at the Natural History Museum, and that's been a real gem to find as a kind of partnership opportunity that is not crowded with loads of other drinks people. And same with Chelsea Flower Show, you know, back in 2017 when we did our first garden, that was all about that art to distillation kind of story and apothecaries to kind of modern non-alcoholic spirits. So it was an opportunity to flex and, you know, design muscle and work really closely with the design team to kind of pull something that was really befitting of our brand together. And yeah, I don't know. We won a gold medal, and then we did a garden the next year as well, and we were able to build some great PR, and you know, we were able to we did a takeover at Harvey Nichols Roof Terrace as part of that activation, and we, you know, took over the Smythson store that's just in Chelsea, and you know, serve drinks and entertain people. And so it was great to take customers, you know, taking like the Waitrose team, or getting guest bartenders to come and serve drinks on the hospitality nights, you know, was brilliant. It was great team bonding exercise, because it's a hell of a build up. It's a hell of a week. And we were we were like 12 people when we did it first in 2017. It's hardcore kind of intensity. We were able to have a bar in a separate area. The following year, we had Seedlip and tonics on all the menus around the ground. So great trial, great visibility, great PR. Obviously, the kind of the prestigiousness of winning a gold medal at Chelsea Flower Show, you know, BBC One coverage. On the second year, you know, selfishly, we did a garden all about the pea family, and I got to visit the breeding lab of the family in Idaho who bred the first sugar snap pea. And you're like, well, that fucking chance doesn't come around very often. I'm in Idaho in a pea growing laboratory with the family that bred the sugar snap pea. Mega. So Rod, who's the son, you know, he came over, he was on the garden. We had people dressed up in Dolce & Gabbana recently designed pea dresses, and it was a amazing kind of focal point for the year, because it happens at the end of May, pea season, perfect. And then we could spin out, obviously, whether it's engaging with customers or content or PR, obviously a good social presence. You know, we could do giveaways on tickets, and I don't know, just it became a real focal point that then bred out loads of other activation and fun.
I love it, and again, it goes back to this thing of disruption and thinking when no one else is looking. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like so many people could have spent that money thinking, let's put a load of like try and secure some gondola end space or something like that in a retailer, which is great, but what you've done there is you've got all the free PR off the back of it. You've managed to build brand depth, i.e. the Waitrose buyers coming and seeing this event, and they'll be like, that's unreal. I think for listeners, you can even do this on a smaller scale. It's just is being irreverent and thinking of different ways to bring the brand alive. And I think you're a stellar example of that. How long have you got, by the way, mate? Have you got a dead?
I can go on a bit. Let me just see.
I haven't got that many.
10 minutes?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, is that okay?
Perfect. Sorry, just turn that off. Yeah, perfect, mate. Yeah, so what I wanted to jump into now, mate, is it goes back to the P's. You've obviously got P's tattooed on your knuckles.
Yep.
I would love to know, like you said, I think it was on your Instagram, like tattoos are a signifier of key life events, I think is what you said.
Yep.
I'd love to know what other tattoos are really important to you. If you don't mind disclosing, you don't have to go there, but I'd love to kind of know what other key events have been so impactful that you've got it inked on your body.
Yeah. I mean, I've got the SEEDLIP crest tattooed on my upper arm. That was the moment that I decided to go full time on it and put my life savings into it. So that was sort of look, I'm going to put this on my body and I'm going to go for it. I've got a lot of tattoos. So I'm not going to be able to tell you about all of them. But for example, just going back to the Chelsea Flower Show, I don't know if you can see this tattoo here.
Yeah.
This is this is the alchemical symbol for copper, right? And our first garden at Chelsea, bird's eye view, was laid out. I wanted it laid out like this. So, that's a kind of first gold medal at Chelsea, first Chelsea garden. I got everything from, I don't know, my dogs. So I've got a dog called Twig. So I've got a Twig, and I've got Kiwi, my old Jack Russell. So I've got a little Kiwi that my 9-year-old daughter drew. I've got daughter's initials all over the place. I've got a little bottle of Seedlip.
I love it.
There.
You're literally wearing the brand in so many respects.
Yeah, I've got, I'm a big fan of Alice in Wonderland, so I've got the Mad Hatter. I've got some words. Whence did the wondrous... I've forgotten them. Whence did the mystic art arise of painting speech and speaking to the eyes, that we, by tracing magic lines, are taught how to colour and embody thought? And that was written a long time ago, and it's just basically about how amazing words are.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it's...
Yeah. All kinds of some doodles, a bee tattoo, some dates. Just, I kind of, they are a right time, right place, symbolic mark a moment kind of thing, and 99% of them are pretty meaningful and really symbolic, and a couple of them I drew or whatever that I just really like.
I love that, mate. And conscious of your time, what I want to wrap up with is a couple of things. So another one of my favourite books is called The Obstacle is the Way.
Yeah.
By Ryan Holiday, and he's literally got The Obstacle is the Way tattooed there, and I think he's got Ego is the Enemy tattooed there is on his arm, so he's never going to fucking forget that, right? I would love to know if you could either tattoo it on yourself or on potentially for listeners, something that they could get tattooed on their arm. They're just starting out on their journey. They're obviously wanting to hit the heights you've hit with Seedlip. Like, what would that one sentence be that they'd have to look at it every day? I suppose, like for me, I've got the War of Art. So if that to me, if I'd got that tattooed on. Another one I love is fear equals growth. So whenever I'm scared, I just say yes. Like, I don't even allow it to like program in my brain. I'd love to know what yours are, if any.
Think slow, act fast, I think, is probably one that springs to mind. I think being able to make decisions is it sounds like we make decisions all day, every day, right? But being able to make decisions based on, when you've got a team looking at you, or when you maybe don't know the answer, but you've got to make a decision. I think that's a real demonstration of character, and being able to have absolute crystal clarity that you can give to your team, and absolutely back your decisions, I think means knowing how to think slow, if that makes sense. So I kind of feel like you've always got to have things bubbling away. You've always got to have projects that you're thinking about, or just stuff rolling along in the background that you can visit and get to. I want to build a cabin in the woods, and I've wanted to for like the last 5 years. Bar buying a really nice treehouse cabin inspiration book, I've not done anything about that, right? But that's okay, because I'm still thinking about it. It's still there. I still want to do it. So some things need time, they need time. It took 2 years to create Seedlip. There's other stuff that I'm working on that I started thinking about before Seedlip. But yeah, I think it's important to allow ideas and things to take time and to evolve and to digest them, and processing is really important. And I don't make any big decisions work-wise in the afternoons. I don't really want to make any big decisions at the end of the week. I want to make them when I'm thinking and deciding and in my best decision-making frame of mind, which is usually in the mornings and usually nearer the beginning of the week. So yeah, and that means I can make fast decisions and quick decisions. And yeah, I don't know, it's sort of like this always on back of your mind thinking, so that when it comes to it, you're really clear and you can kind of go, yeah, let's go this way. I know what we need to do.
That's so interesting, because I think that's kind of the way I do the podcast. Is I probably started doing research for this like ages ago, but like just dotting bits. And I was like, then I let it sit. My creative process is just let it sort of sit in the subconscious, because that's where all the ideas come from. Yeah. And then I'd go back to it a bit, and then I'm interviewing Stuart from Minor Figures next week, so that I've got ideas for what I want to talk about there. And I think there's this idea of what you've said there about thinking slow and fast, and making decisions fast is absolutely brilliant. I think listeners can implement that. Final question, mate, is, and I've asked this to the last couple of guests, and it's elicited some really interesting kind of insights, is basically the obstacle is the way. So what has been one on your journey seemingly insurmountable obstacle that then paved the way forward, whether that could be lessons or insights?
With Seedlip or in general?
Could be either, mate.
I went to a 21st birthday for a really good mate of mine back when I was 21, not my 21-year-old mate now. And yeah, it was quite late, it was quite noisy, it was quite bubbly, and a fight broke out between a mate of mine another guest that I didn't know. And I'm not a big bloke, but I was there, and so I sort of tried to step in and break the fight up. And I ended up getting thrown out of a window because they were fighting just by this window that was open, second floor in a hotel. And yeah, I fell out the window. And I don't remember a lot of it because I was knocked out, but I was lucky I landed on grass and you know, I still got ringing in my ears and all the rest of it. But I was actually jolly lucky. But what did happen was I lost my sense of smell for 9 months. And when it came back, my God, I could not believe how I'd just totally taken my nose and aroma. I'd totally taken them for granted. You know, and I trained to be a chef by this point. So I had a decent understanding, a bit of understanding about food and flavor and aroma. But when this came back and I started smelling things and I started then having memories based on smells, and you know, I'm sure everybody can relate to a smell or a moment where you're like, holy fuck, I've just gone back to the beach at childhood. You know, that sun cream smell has just reminded me of that holiday in Greece, you know, whatever it is. And their aromas, you know, we taste 70-80% through our nose, right? So like our nose is this incredible gateway to memory, obviously to aroma, but to taste as well. And that then became, when I got it back, and then obviously when starting to develop SEEDLIP and thinking about the blends, aroma and smell and memory became the guiding my guiding light really on developing 3 blends that really were based on childhood memories and on aromas from my childhood. So rather than going, oh, what do they do in alcohol? Let me copy that. I was sort of like, no, I want to start from a completely different perspective here and a very different start point. And, you know, I remember picking peas from the plant in our pea fields, and eating a fresh pea on a summer's day is about the greenest, sweetest, most beautiful thing I think you can eat. How can I capture that, you know, greenness and kind of brightness in a blend? I without having lost my sense of smell, I don't think I would have, as I do now. I fucking smell everything. Like I smell people, you know. It's like I have a huge perfume collection. I put perfume on to go to bed because I just want to like bathe in the smell of, not because I want to smell nice, because I want to smell something really fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Right?
Mate, I never knew that. That is epic. And also, because I tried one had my first SEEDLIP in a it wasn't actually a nice sort of cocktail bar in London. It was actually like some small pub down in like Dorking way, actually. Yeah. And I obviously knew this podcast was coming up, and I tried it, and I was like, "Fucking hell!" It's so, as you say, it's not like a gin and tonic. It's its own category. It's its own category. It's got this pungent, like, I don't know. It tastes like a garden. It sounds really weird, right? But it does. And I was like drinking it. I was like, "Mum, try some of this," and it was just like smacks you in the face with this flavour. It's unreal. But I never knew that. Obviously, the loss of smell is what led to this obsession with the flavour.
Smell is, you know, it's why, okay, garnishes on drinks look pretty, right? But they're there because they're at your nose when you take a sip. You know, they're not just there to look nice. They're there to be part of complementing the taste, because there's that incredible aroma. So yeah, like smell. Notice all the smells, and the most random word you can now go and tell people about is, you know, that smell after it rains.
What is that?
Yeah, petrichor.
Petrichor.
Yeah, that smell. Everybody knows of like.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Ben, mate, I've absolutely loved that. Jam-packed with wisdom. I just think this whole kind of this nature and this disruption and thinking differently, and there's just so much in that for listeners, mate. So yeah, really, really appreciate you coming on today.
Great. It was great to chat.
Wicked, mate. And